I mean to say that I think that the court's going to overrule cases in the immediate future. Usually it takes 15 to 20 years for the court to overrule cases. You'd think a shorter period, but that's because they get on the front page when they're overruled, and they get over in the want ads when they're just run-of-the-mill cases. So ordinarily, why it would take that length of time. That's not to say that in the application of the law, as already determined by the court, to facts of a specific case, that there would be a difference. I think there will be a difference there, because I believe that the court would be more liberal, you might say, in the interpretation of facts. Take, for example, in the matter of the unreasonableness of a search and seizure, which is the language of our federal Constitution. I believe that the findings of a trial court in the state would possibly receive a little bit more generous treatment by the Supreme Court than they were previously.
Couple of years, passengers on planes taking off could never be sure but what they might be hijacked to Cuba. The FAA is hoping to change the odds in that regard. Today, here at Love Field, an anti-hijack system was tested and explained. The intricacies were kept secret because they would become ineffective. There are two aspects to the system. The first involves observing all passengers in the terminal, as explained by FAA Public Affairs Officer Dave Brown.
The FAA psychology staff has done a case study on all hijackings. From this, they have developed certain characteristics that seem to be common to some hijackers. From this, they've developed criteria. From the criteria, we feel that we can become alerted to a potential hijacker before he gets on the airplane.
Does someone observe all passengers?
Yes, that's right. And from all the passengers, these characteristics will tip us off to certain people. The psychologists have said that using this, we can eliminate the need to screen 99% of the airplane traveling public.
The second phase of the system is a modification of existing equipment which actually serves as a weapons screening device. It consists of two long poles through which a passenger must pass before boarding the plane. There are sensors in the poles which are connected to a recorder, and this will give an indication whether the passenger is carrying as much ferrous metal as it would take to make a weapon. A passenger would have to fail both tests before being questioned or detained. It's emphasized that this is the testing stage, and actual operating procedures will have to be determined before the system can be put into regular use. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News.
The Texas Wesleyan campus here in Fort Worth is a setting for a conference attended by some 230 members of the Congregational Methodist Church. Among the items on their agenda last night and again today was a discussion by the Reverend F. Douglas Fizzell of the reparation demands made by black militants in America against this nation's white churches. I talked with the Reverend Fizzell. Reverend Fizzell, the demands for reparation have been based on the oppression of the black masses by the white races over the course of history. How do you relate that to today? Apparently you don't agree with it. How do you relate it to today?
I don't think that it's a matter of black people against white people. I think this is a perversion of the facts that are before us. The black people are not against the white people, and the white people are not against the black people. This is a front used by something bigger and more sinister than the black militants that are among us.
Is it essentially your position then that this generation didn't oppress this black generation and thus they owe them nothing?
I agree. We owe them nothing. The Bible tells us we owe no man anything.
The Reverend Fizzell says that it is his feeling and that of his colleagues that this generation did not oppress the blacks, that this is a Christian era and not an era of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and therefore this generation of whites should be preaching to the blacks, not paying to them. From Texas Wesleyan Campus, this is Jerry Taft reporting.
And based on our survey and our research, this is the most extensive type of a study in the United States. And it encompasses 50 lineal miles and uses statistical methods of probability sampling, which eliminates any bias in the sample. So it's a completely objective survey.
Why did you feel a need for this study?
Well, as you know, there's been quite a bit of concern about the trash and litter on our highways. And a lot of people are asking, well, why don't we do something about it? But before any action can be taken, we need to know, well, what makes up litter? If we're going to take action, where do we direct our efforts?
What makes up most of the litter in Dallas?
The biggest single component is the paper, 57%, according to our survey.
What is the biggest problem litter, though?
The biggest problem litter is probably in the area of cans, which is 36%. And the main reason is that paper will eventually degrade, but cans are usually there practically forever.